wrathful compassion, which so many people want to turn away from. But sometimes we've got to come with our energy and with the energy of something that, oh my God, this is not right.
Who's right, who's wrong, what's good, what's bad.
We can really learn a lot from somebody who has a different point of view from us. And if we can get beyond the contention or any disagreement, we can grow as a person.
The more that I was brave and courageous to overtly put on my website that this is an anti-racist space, we're going to make room to have conversations about the way in which systems of oppression impact our lives and therefore disrupt our sense of ourself and our wellness, and therefore we need Reiki.
Sitting back and doing nothing is actually not supporting our own divinity, and it's not supporting the divinity of our community and our world.
Hurt people hurt people.
Welcome, friends, to the Reiki Women podcast, an exploration into the profound depths of the system of Reiki from a Japanese spiritual perspective and how that relates to our modern lives.
We are keeping it real to Reiki's origins, challenging the New Age stereotype that things like crystals, chakras, and angels are authentic aspects of the system. I'm Bronwen Logan, and when I'm not writing best-selling books about the Japanese system of Reiki, 75,000 readers and counting, I'm here debunking outmoded Reiki myths and coaching individuals and groups through my website, Reiki with Bronwen.
And I'm Michaela Daystar, lead teacher and weaver of Heartscapes Reiki, connecting the dots between Reiki and environmental and social justice, because our individual healing cannot be extracted from healing relationship with the collective and with the land.
And I'm Carrie Varela from the Reiki Healing Society, here to help you transform your Reiki practice into a thriving, prosperous business. Because while passion fuels your purpose, it's time to make it sustainable, authentic, and beautifully you. We're three women diving into the heart of Japanese Reiki. We're building a community that centers women's voices and inspires well-being. We're not just for women, we're for everybody. Come join the conversation.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. We're so excited to be back here with you in conversation. Today, we wanted to invite you all in to a conversation that I know for me, I have happened to have a number of times kind of behind the scenes with other Reiki practitioners, other folks. It's a conversation that comes back into the community from time to time, and one that feels particularly potent for us to be having in these moments. During times when the political landscape in the world is a little bit present, it's a little spicy. It's there's a lot of movement happening, particularly for those of us here in the United States. And this question that circles around is how much, if any, do we as Reiki practitioners engage in conversations and open discussion about politics within our Reiki practice, within our businesses, within our communities? What does it mean even to be political? And does that have a place within our Reiki practice? The three of us have walked the journey of answering that questions for ourselves, and whether or not we've really landed in a solid place with it, it's one that we have thought about for ourselves and a conversation we've had amongst ourselves off camera. And so we thought we would open it up to you, our listener, the questions of what does it mean to be political, and what, if any, role does that a part of our identity as individuals have in our Reiki practice? And of course, as always, to what degree can our practice with Reiki help us to feel settled and stable, centered inside of times of turmoil, whenever that might be. And so I'd love to hand it over to Bronwen and see what comes up for you today around these topics.
Yeah, I love that we have all expressed to some degree an uncertainty about how to discuss this. We all have Reiki businesses. We all want to be inclusive, and we want to not alienate anyone from our discussion, our world. And that can be difficult when things become very black and white. I think it would be really helpful in a way not to talk about what my political views are, if you like, but what does it mean to be political? And that's what you just alluded to, Michaela. And so I did look up a little thing to see it because I thought, oh my God, I have absolutely no idea what it actually means to be political. I mean, you can say that we are not quite on solid ground with this subject, which is a good thing. I think it's good to be a little unbalanced with that, always finding balance. So allowing yourself to be open to new ideas and thoughts instead of just being totally fixed and not being ready to listen or to talk as we're doing now. So to be political, I see here it says, I'm just reading something, it says it means to engage in activities related to governance, power dynamics, and decision-making processes within a society. If I see that, then I think, well, that's really what we do every day in our everyday lives for ourselves, right? Not even about like society or anything like that. Just for me, I'm always, every moment, I'm making decisions, deciding how I'm going to do things and how it's going to help me live the most effective, happy, balanced life that I can possibly live. So looking at that, I thought, well, we can see things always in this double layer. So we can see things for ourselves and we can see things for the world around us. So how we are in ourselves, because there's all different parts of me and different things happening to me all the time, just like a society. And then there's me in society and how I am as a political being in society. And yes, we can say that the system of Reiki is there as a support, obviously, because it's there giving us guidelines such as the Reiki precepts. So I've always got those to rely on, and I can rely on those for myself. So how I live my life, and then how I live my life within society. And it doesn't mean that I'm just going to sit back and go, I'm such a loving being, and therefore everything else is going to be good in the world. And because that is not how the world is, and it's generally not how it is within myself either. You know, there's all different things happening, and I'm reacting and responding to different experiences in my life. So if I look at the world and what's happening out there and how I am in it, yes, I can bring myself as a Reiki practitioner to that world for sure. But I need to think about what that really means. I can have at the base of everything that I do the Reiki precepts, but how do I even see those Reiki precepts in the world? Right. So they're not just some words on a piece of paper, and they are actual active things that I can do. And I can do them in a multitude of ways. And we've talked before about things like wrathful compassion, right? Which so many people want to turn away from. But, you know, it's this idea that to be compassionate, sometimes we've got to come with our energy and with the energy of something that, oh my God, this is not right. So bringing that active element to the things that we do. And if you find that something is not right within you, in yourself, you are active and you want to change that. You in society, the same. There's no difference with this. When I'm in society, if I'm seeing things that are happening that I'm not happy about, then actively I can do something about that, and I should. And that is the Reiki precepts. So looking at the Reiki precepts I mean, it's much more complex than that, how it all comes together. There are so many different ways we can view each of those precepts and how we work with them. But they're a wonderful aspect to have there for us. And yes, they sit at the foundation and they can really complement everything that we do politically for ourselves, for others, and a great thing to have there with us. And it doesn't mean that we're passive, non-active. In fact, it's about doing something and being that something in our lives and therefore also in society. Look, I've probably got a lot more to say, but I think it's a really good place for me anyway to begin, and hopefully it inspires something in you, Carrie.
Oh yeah, that was really inspiring. Thank you for that. It's so true. And it's about, what I feel and what you were talking about, Bronwyn, is, having those words that you live by. And they're your, moral anchor. and an anchor that reminds you of how you want to live your life and how you want to show up. And certainly the Reiki precepts really sit at the foundation of the whole system of Reiki. And I always like reflect on what's at the foundation of the foundation is compassion. And so I do think that allusion to, or that reference to one of our previous episodes, Wrathful Compassion, that was a really powerful episode because what is our responsibility when something is happening in the world that we feel is wrong, or there's an injustice that's happening? What responsibility, if any, do we have to speak to that? And Yeah, it's a very spicy atmosphere here in the United States. It's painful, really, and lots of people losing their jobs. Um, Lots of people are having their rights denied, and there's a narrative of what, should be is becoming this like societal voice. It's so loud, and it's very dominating, and it's very prejudiced to people of color, trans people, to women, to all different walks of people. And it's really disheartening to see. So I think it's a time to be political. I feel this moral edge in me that says I have to be vocal about what I believe in and the world that I believe in, and not be blind to this kind of idealistic notion that everyone out there has inherently good heart and good motives and good good intentions. Like, that's something I'm learning right now. That's kind of just like this fantasy Disneyland view of life, and there's actually real power at play. There's real people who are pulling strings in society. And it's hard for me. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I really am just not. And I know some people are really drawn to conspiracy theories, and they might be really right. But, it's there's as somebody, I just see multiple sides to the same coin, and it's hard because, I've traveled through third world countries, and I've seen the benefit of having an industrialized society, a well-developed government, the roads, having people being able to pick up trash on the right day of the week, and different aspects of governance that really support a greater good in our world. And I think that's important part of governance. That I'm kind of more on, like, I trust the government. I think that they have the best interests of people in mind. I think a lot of politicians do, but I'm trying not to be naive in that realm either. So I'm not. It's an interesting topic, and there's a lot of people in the yogic worldview who feel like yoga and politics really go hand in hand, and that we have an obligation, a moral obligation, to speak out to injustice in the world, because we are spiritual practitioners, right? And that we're here to help direct or guide that moral center of the world in our own small way, in our own way of embodying that, even just for ourselves, but hopefully emulating that for others as well, helping other people find their center and their moral, North Star. I think back on one of the spiritual teachers that came into my life when I traveled to India. His name's Sri Aurobindo, and he was, his philosophy and his point of view shaped the whole independence movement from India, from the British. He was a big, huge part of the whole, like, philosophical architecture of why India should separate from colonial rule. And he considered it one of his greatest life accomplishments, to see India independent at the time, before he died. And so I'll be humble and say that that's not me. I'm here to like, guide the hand of nations or anything like that. No, no, no. I'm just living my life over here. But I do have an obligation, a moral responsibility, I think, to keep breathing life into the world that I believe in, a sense of justice, of a world I believe in. And that's one of the reasons that compelled me to enter politics myself in my own very humble way. I was elected town council this last year in December, and I'm taking my first public role or elected position, and I've done about maybe 3 or 4 town councils thus far, and I'm a rookie. I'm getting the ropes underneath me and learning more about it. But it's been a really cool process, actually, being a part of decision making on, city level, and recognizing how important input is from local citizens. And that's certainly true in our town. Like, if you take the time to come up to town council and say your point of view about your opinion about a specific thing that's happening, we will listen to you. More than likely, what you are going to say to us is going to be a really influential factor in like the overall decision this that we make, and help steer the decisions in a certain way. Um, so I think we shouldn't, if we want to get political, I mean, you got to think about there's an overwhelm piece, and it's something that we've talked to before in this podcast. Is like, how do I direct my energy into the right places? Where do I really feel called to give back? And in that sense, like, I mean, for me, what has always been helpful is to really try to identify what is really important to me. And in being an empathic person, somebody who cares about the suffering of all living beings, from our furry friends to our feathered friends to my fellow citizens, I care. But that there's an overwhelm that can really happen when all the weight of the world is sitting so heavy on our shoulders and feeling like we're responsible for it all. So I'm always trying to separate that sense of responsibility, um, and be able to just live my life, but I am a big fan of finding a cause that you really believe in and putting that energy, that altruistic energy of, wanting to, leave this planet a better place, because in our own little humble way, we've, put our effort into making the world more beautiful, more healed, more happy. Um, so, for me, my cause is wild animals. I love wild animals. Now my cause has also been local governance, and getting to know that, and I have to kind of raise my hands up and just say that's all I can really do. That's all I really can do, except maybe, meet with you all and get political here on the Reiki Women podcast today, and with the hopes that we just, pass the flame, pass the light. um, there's no the light doesn't get dimmed by sharing it, right? Like, we can light as many candles as we can from one candle lit. And so that's why I'm showing up today, and I hope you all who are listening feel there's a candle being passed in your direction, and that your light matters just as much as anyone else's.
That's a lovely place to rest, Carrie. Bronwen, I love that you started with the definition of what it means to be political, being involved with the governance and power structures of society. And, from that perspective, like, whether or not our attention is focused on it, we are political every moment of the day, because we're engaging in the governance of society by being governed, by following laws, by, making our voices heard in various ways, by, engaging with other citizens. We are absolutely engaging in power dynamics every day, all the time, as people subjected to power from many places, and as people who wield power from the multiple points of our own identities. And of course, those identities are multiple and complex and intersectional in each of us. And in each of us, we have parts of ourselves that hold power and parts of ourselves that are subjected to the power of others. So we're inherently political by being social animals living in a governed society. And so then, the question is, so to what degree do we engage with that directly, in these conversations? And that's a question that's actually guided my journey with Heartscapes, with my business, and with my personal practice of Reiki as something that I explicitly, use as, a way to navigate those power dynamics and those systems of governance and my roles within them. I do want to share a little bit about that personal journey, but I wanted to first just, point out that this podcast is itself overtly political. I mean, our subject is around uplifting women's voices, issues that impact women within the Reiki community, the fact that women make up the majority of Reiki practitioners, but the minority of the big voices that are followed on kind of global stages around Reiki leadership. We've made a number of episodes that are explicitly political. In fact, we had one on surviving the election not so long ago. We've talked about power itself, as a subject, not only power in the terms of energy, Reiki, the phenomenon of power, but power dynamics within society. And we've certainly talked in a number of ways about the impacts of various power dynamics in society on women and how our Reiki practice engages with that. The final episode in our Radiant series with Elise Brenner was explicitly political, and beautifully so, around dynamics of gender in society. And so I love that about us, I love that about us. And it's interesting to me to just inventory for myself and then notice in my conversations with others, what are the realms of politics that I feel comfortable and confident stepping into and speaking to publicly, and what are the ones that I feel a little shy about, a little bit censored about even. Certainly that's true when it's issues that I just don't know much of anything about. We shouldn't necessarily speak publicly to things that we don't know about, and we should be careful speaking to things that, about the impact of things when we ourselves are not impacted. However, when it's things that I do know about and I am impacted by, and I'm still feeling shy to talk about it, that's where I really want to pay attention to, what's going on there. I'm sure I've mentioned in this space, my previous life, my previous career path was in the realm of social justice leadership development, explicitly, overtly political in nature, explicitly training college students to go into the world and engage in politics on all fronts, in all ways, all parts of society, according to their passions, according to their views, and from a very specific political viewpoint. So that was my life. That's, what I dedicated my career to for 12, 13 years. And that came out of my own personal upbringing, which was also very politically oriented in a particular political viewpoint. And when I, really had to face the fact that my passions and my skills as a employee, as a person doing work and wanting to serve the world, that I was passionate about the work I was doing, but it wasn't making the best use of my skills. It wasn't making the best use of the things that I felt I really could contribute. And I started to shift my career path, ultimately becoming a Reiki practitioner and teacher, feeling like a very different path. I really struggled with that. I really felt like, but I'm so passionate about politics and about social justice, but I'm talking about going over here to this realm that I really don't see those issues being talked about. I'm not sure if I'm even allowed to bring those things in over here. I certainly didn't have a lot of freedom in the university I was in to bring spiritual concerns and things around art and energy and, the internal landscape and our emotional, life into that realm of social justice. So it felt like there was this wall between these two worlds that were so important to me. And, really the story of my career has been about integrating those two worlds. And it was ironically the other students and teachers in my graduate school cohort where I was studying another level of social justice leadership development. I'd kind of chosen that path. I'm going to stay on that path career-wise. And I was, telling them about these developing passions around healing and wholeness and Reiki and art and this desire to support people and being whole and well and coming home to themselves and just seeing how the students I was working with were so harmed by the systems that they were fighting against. They were just so fundamentally harmed by them, and we weren't able to help them with that harm in the context of this university setting. Wanted to help that aspect of people's lives. And I'm talking about them as these are two different things, and I'm struggling to choose. And my cohort so lovingly said, why do you think those are so different? Why do you think that we who are going out into the world to make change through political realms in all these different parts of society don't need someone like you coming alongside us who understands this landscape, who cares about it, and who wants us to be whole and resourced and well and strong and healthy as we do that work? And it was this incredible moment of like being seen, first of all, for who I was, and this moment that really helped to start integrating those things for me. And I really had to come to terms with how I had disintegrated them inside of myself. So all of that being said, even with that background, as I started Heartscapes and tried to figure out how to run a Reiki business and all of that, it took me a long time to figure out how those worlds would come together in this new space. And I was very shy about speaking directly to these issues and to the ways in which I saw Reiki being supportive in justice movements and how desperately those movements need practices like this to be normalized and brought into the organizations and brought into the movements and like explicitly practiced and talked about inside of these spaces. And more that has happened over the last 10 years that I've been making this transition. More and more people are seeing that need. And now the movements that I pay the most attention to, that I feel the most aligned with, are explicitly bringing in meditation and self-reflection and art and song and all of these things, ancestor work and just beautiful things into very serious political work. And what I realized as I went, through and started working with students and clients is that because I was being shy and I was being quiet about who I am in that other realm, which was so much of who I am, like it's so integrated into who I am, but I was being quiet about it, I wasn't actually attracting all of the right people to my business. And I was having, repeatedly experiences of kind of struggling to relate to what certain students needed, what their interests were, what their concerns were. And I was feeling stifled in what I could really offer them because they weren't looking for somebody who would speak to these topics. And the more that I was brave and courageous to overtly put on my website that, this is an anti-racist space. This is a place where we're going to make room to have conversations about the way in which systems of oppression impact our lives and therefore disrupt our sense of ourself and our wellness, and therefore we need Reiki. That this is going to be a place where people who have experienced marginalization are going to be welcomed, and I'm going to do my very best to create a space that is safe and homecoming for you. And I'm going to offer some of my services for free to people who are explicitly impacted by, things happening in the world. The more that I was clear about that, and the more that I talked about even the justice implications in terms of the history of Reiki, which I have now thoroughly geeked out about in many different spaces, the way in which Reiki came into the country in the midst of World War II, when we were at war with Japan, and what that meant for the way in which Reiki was absorbed into this country, what it meant for the specific people who brought it here, including the death of one of them. The more I talked about that, the better aligned I became with the people who came, because of course they could see themselves, the people that I most just in love with working with could see themselves in how I was talking about the work. And the more clear I was about it, the better alignment I've been experiencing between myself and my clients. And let me tell you, in my Reiki classes, my 9-month program where I'm working with small group of students over 9 months, we are highly political in our conversations, explicitly, like no holds barred. Like we know who each other are, we know what our positions are, and we know that we're here together to allow Reiki to be a buoy for us in whatever it is that we're experiencing. And that feels amazing to have created a space where I don't have to hide those parts of myself, and neither do they. Now, that's not going to be the right path for everybody, right? It's not going to feel like the right way to handle it for everybody. And I completely respect wherever anybody is with their Reiki business, with their practice, in terms of how much this matters to them personally, how much it matters to the people that they're working with. And, for some people, it feels safer and better and more nourishing to not have to talk about things like that inside of this kind of space. And I respect that, right? Because we need all different kinds of spaces. But I think kind of where I've landed with it, and if there's any advice that I would offer is, that we as Reiki practitioners and teachers, firstly are inherently political as social animals living in a governed society. That is part of who we are. We do have perspectives about that, no matter how much we do or don't pay attention to them. And if it feels like, it's like a point of self-interrogation, if it feels like you're shutting down things that matter to you inside of the way that you present your business, and if that feels like a point that's sticky, if it feels uncomfortable, then maybe get curious about how you might bring more of that in and whether or not that feels right. And whether or not you might actually really enjoy working with people with a little bit more openness about that side of our lives, because guaranteed the people coming to you for services are impacted by politics. Their lives are impacted one way or the other. I'm not putting a judgment on whether that impact is good or bad, but there is impact, right, on our lives every day about things happening around us in society. And our classes and our Reiki sessions can be a space where those things can be given some breath and be given some space if they want to, right? If that's something that's important. So that was a longer tangent that I intended to go on, but that's just kind of where I am right now in answering the questions of what is politics and to what degree do we bring that into our Reiki practice. And I will pause right there.
Okay, well, thank you. Before we go on to more of this, I actually want to hear what everyone's up to in their Reiki business at the moment, talking about Reiki businesses and political or not. So, Carrie, I'd love to hear what's going on with you at the moment. What are you up to? Anything exciting?
Yes, exciting. I just feel like what inspires me in this kind of fiery, spicy political atmosphere is helping people connect more with their purpose. So I'm have a package available that includes 3 Reiki sessions and 2 Vedic astrology readings. So an opportunity to really go deeply into your interconnection with the cosmos and how it really helps you figure out and align around your purpose. And then, of course, the practice of Reiki is just an incredible practice to help us guide ourselves towards our purpose. And so I feel like these 2 modalities paired together is a really profound way of giving one's insight into our life purpose. And with that clarity, of course, feeling less self-critical, self-judgment, maybe more understanding of why one has chosen a specific life path, and to feel more empowered to continue to follow your own unique journey through life. So that's what I've got up in my workshop, and you can always just contact me, and I'd be happy to give you more information about that package.
That sounds
Michaela,
like a really...
Okay. Michaela, tell us about yours, and then Bronwen, I can't wait to hear about yours. Thank you for asking, by the way.
Yeah, I Carrie, that sounds like such a delicious offering. I'm really excited by it. I'm also excited to have been spending some time over the past few months really building up, well, beginning to build up my library of self-paced online courses in an online classroom, Thinkific. And that began with the Cultivating Trauma-Informed Reiki Practice class that I've been offering for a couple of years now. But I've started offering shorter classes, kind of more bite-sized, kind of topic-specific classes that will be offered live and then will be transferred over to Thinkific to be used as a self-paced class. And I'm really excited about the first one that's up, which is about intuition. It's following the 2 years of kind of intuition lab that I spent exploring the connection between Reiki and intuition. So that class is up now. The one I'm teaching tomorrow will be up on Thinkific in a couple of weeks. And that is on the 3 diamonds. So powered by the 3 diamonds, looking at the 3 diamonds as the energy map to the system of Reiki and the landscape that map guides us through, the Sanmitsu, the 3 mystic practices of the Japanese traditions. And so that one will be up shortly. And then there will be monthly, a new one going up. So I'm really excited to build up that library of accessible, low-cost, self-paced courses that people can drop into whenever they like. That's what I'm excited about. How about you, Bronwen?
Sounds wonderful. Yeah, I was thinking maybe something simple today to tell you about, and that is that I've just changed the way that you can subscribe to my newsletter on my website. So if you hop onto my website, Reiki with Bronwen, you'll see that a little pop-up thing comes up and it'll ask you to subscribe. And if you do, you get a free 15-minute relaxation meditation that I've created. So that's a nice little freebie if you're looking for something. And I would love to see you on my newsletter list. And I do send out newsletters. I actually saw someone send out a newsletter the other day for something that wasn't Reiki oriented, but it was called the Rare Newsletter. And I thought, what a great name for a newsletter, because no one wants heaps of newsletters coming in, right? They want the rare newsletter, the one that's got the sort of like the special bits, and it's just it has meaning. So that is what I try to do with my newsletters. I don't send out heaps of them, and when I do, it's for a purpose and a reason. So please do pop along to Reiki with Bronwen and grab a free meditation and join my newsletter.
Deal.
Oh, wow. Back to that subject of politics. I was thinking about, Carrie, what you were saying. I think that we are all inherently good, actually. And it's that Shinto concept that we all have this kami inside of us, this divinity. And so when we're working on ourselves, we're nurturing this kami, we're feeding this kami, and we're also, you could see it as polishing that kami. We're trying to actually become, in this lifetime, divine. And that is something that we do talk about within the system of Reiki, and it's what the practices are there for, to support us in that process. Now, if we look at the world of politics, it looks like very few people have that divinity inside of them. You know what I mean? It feels like that, right? Often we'll be like, oh, that person's awful. They're doing nasty things, cruel things, possibly what some people might call evil things. But at the same time, I do believe that we have this inherent goodness inside of us. What I do think is that often it's not nurtured, fed, polished, right? And maybe that divinity inside of us, that kami, I love the idea of this living being inside of us just bursting to come out. Sometimes it's being starved. So when I look at these people who are doing cruel things in this world, things that are going to hurt other people, then I think they're not in touch with this beautiful divinity inside of themselves. And things happen to them in their lives that haven't given them the opportunity to touch that part of themselves, to know that part of themselves. And Carrie, you spoke about empaths. I think everybody is, in that sense, from that perspective, everybody is an empath. But then I think that, because I think it's a natural thing, we all have to exist on this world together, which is why it was created in the way to be supportive of each other. Because if we weren't, our society would die, we would die, and humans wouldn't be here anymore. We have to be here for each other in some way. However, if that kami inside of us is not looked after, is not recognized, then we can not understand that aspect of existence. And this is, I think, what's happening in the world today. There's this lack of true spirituality, lack of true connection through to us, inside of us, or this willingness to try to find it. I'm not saying I'm perfect. What I'm saying is people that do Reiki, they're not perfect, but we have a desire to know this divinity inside of us. And it would be wonderful if we could inspire that in others. And I think some people have been through so much harm in their lives that it's very difficult for them to actually recognize that inside of themselves. And that, I believe, is at the base of a lot of the cruelty that exists in this world today. So we do all have that goodness inside of us. That's a good thing. And it is a sign of hope as well. Yeah, because it can be stimulated. I know that there are many political figures out there doing things today that are harmful and hurtful. Wouldn't it be wonderful if they could actually touch that inside of themselves? Know that, if only for a split second, and that it could start to shift their thoughts and their ideas about the world and how we need to be here for each other. I was thinking, Carrie, as well, you spoke about Sri Aurobindo, yeah? And when we were talking about this subject before we came on, I was thinking about Gandhi, because this non-violent political action that he undertook in his lifetime and is famous for. Once again, not a perfect person, but it's this thing that he understood that he didn't want to hurt anybody, but change needed to happen. And we can see that as a great role model for us. We can all do it in our own ways, but sitting back and doing nothing is actually not supporting our own divinity, and it's not supporting the divinity of our community and our world either. So we need to step up, and we need to help spark that fire inside all of us and in our communities, help everyone come together and be here for each other.
I love that you said that. And I really, yeah, that's just such a beautiful reminder, and it's true. I think everybody has a good side and a good part of themselves and a divine part of themselves. And it's so important to cultivate that part of ourselves, to speak to that part of ourselves. And when in relationship and in politics, is to recognize people for their goodness, because I think some politicians do immensely good things for the world. They really do. Excuse me. And yeah, thanks for bringing up Gandhi too. I mean, and Michaela, I loved hearing your stories about social justice and your own like boot camp for your experiences in social justice, and having that broader stroke of, the well-being that we need to cultivate, and the vision, the practices that help us find connection to ourselves and to keep us inspired and keep going on a path of social justice, because it is a tough path. It's a warrior path in many ways. And I was just reminded how in college I just spent so much of my time and invested in so many classes around nonviolent social movements, and that just really does sit at the core of what I believe, a world that I believe in, is that we can make change through, a peaceful means. And, I'm already against the next war. I'm already against the war in Ukraine. I'm already against the war in Gaza. It's hard to remind ourselves that people are really suffering. And and to sit on that level with people, and sometimes it's hard to accept the joys of life because we feel like other people are suffering, so it's hard to take in the joy. So, but I think that does no service to people who are suffering to deny ourselves the joy and happiness that we can find in one life. So I'm also really feeling inspired by your comments about the politicalness of this podcast, and really acknowledging us for speaking out about important issues, obviously globally here on this call, on this episode, but also just speaking, I think, in a quiet but firm way about having a different kind of relationship with Reiki. And, you know, um, that leads me, I guess, to one other thing that I feel like Reiki, one thing that's really important for me, and Reiki has helped me find this, is to remember that I don't have to think the same way or have the same political beliefs as people to see their true self, to see their goodness, to want to understand them. And we talked about this in the episode about surviving the U.S. election, like that, like we can really learn a lot from somebody who has a different point of view from us. And if we can, get beyond the contention or any disagreement from listening to somebody who has a different point of view, I think that we can grow as a person. And so that's one thing that I'm always striving to do, is to in my Reiki sphere, in my Reiki spaces and communities that I'm a part of, is to offer that sense of inclusivity, even for people on different political divides, all kinds of different people, and offer that diversity. And life would be really dull and boring if we were all the same. Like we aren't. There's each of us are very unique and have our unique points of view, living very distinct and unique lives. So coming together and seeing beyond those divisions and seeing the light in each person, that's something that I'm always striving to see in others, and then also to remind myself of, when I'm with somebody who has a different point of view.
Absolutely. And I think these are, some of the places that our Reiki practice really serves us. Bronwen, I was also really touched by the way you spoke of the inherent goodness in people, and the traditions that form the foundation of the system of Reiki really give us a context for that, right? The idea of the true self, the ultimate reality of our inherent clarity and wholeness and goodness, that love, compassion is at the foundation, as you said, Carrie, when speaking of the precepts, that, at that level of our center, of our true self, our true nature, is this connected, clear, whole being that, is connected in energy and in love to everybody else. And that's, who we are, and we can touch that through the practice of Reiki. We don't have to be enlightened to feel that, right? We can drop into that experience through these practices. And, I got a little bit reflective about a really poignant, way that showed up recently with my students, and, just feeling so grateful to have this practice. In the group of students I'm working with right now, 5 out of the 6 of them have, close family members who have very different political views from them. And, in these times, the tensions between those views, which, in calm times, we can just kind of take we don't talk about politics, like, perspective at the dinner table, and just kind of let, people be the way they are and connect on other types of topics. But, when things are intense the way they are now, and there's spiciness around these things, it's almost unavoidable to find those places of contention with each other. And it's a real pain point for folks who are experiencing that. I'm sure people listening to this podcast have had that experience of just having these stark differences. And when those differences around things that feel incredibly frightening, or, that impact people's ways of lives, people's rights, people's safety, the way that people are treated in society, one way or the other, it can feel like those differences are actually about goodness and badness, right? Like who's right, who's wrong, what's good, what's bad. And we get into those points of duality. And again, when we're talking about people that we care about, that's an incredibly painful place to be. And so it's been so beautiful to have these practices and to be able to talk about these things and the pain of that, and then have a simple practice like Gassho, where we can hold, I love this person, and their views feel so aggravating or even harmful to me. And to bring those two seemingly insurmountable realities together at our heart and hold them and have practices that make us feel like we're bigger inside so we can hold those things that seem to be in conflict, and to find our way back to that inherent point of connection and that truth that all of us have this center that is connected and that is beautiful. We work with extending that practice to people that we don't even know, people that feel very antagonistic to us out in the world. And can we hold this space of non-duality? Can we hold the goodness of all people, even the people we feel very harmed by, in this Reiki space? And when we practice with gentleness, when we respect our boundaries and we go at the pace that works for us, and we remember that we always have a choice whether or not we put our attention on a practice like that, right? We talked about boundaries last week, and it came up that, like, yes, there's this reality, or this what is held to be truth within the system of Reiki, that we're all connected. And then in the relative reality of our lives, we might feel very like we do not want to be connected with certain people. And then, if we can respect that, we can always choose whether or not we pay attention to that connection, or if we need to just stay separate. We can respect that, go at our own pace. We absolutely can get to the point where we can feel that wholeness of life with the human family across all of these boundaries. And truly, that is the pathway to feeling centered and stable, even in the midst of great stormy weather, even in the face of great change. If we can come back to that space, then the things happening around us are momentary. And that's not to say that we don't take action on things that are harming us or that are harming other people. We absolutely can, but we need to have that centered space of calm where we don't feel like we're at odds with everybody. We don't feel like we're antagonized by everybody or antagonizing, to return to, and then make our decision from there about what we're going to do, what we're going to say, where we're going to take a stand, where we're going to try to make a change, where we're going to say to a loved one, I love you, and that thing you just said is so hurtful. Can we talk about it? Or I'm going to need some space from you, or this is the boundary that I need from you around that thing. It's been really powerful and profound, and just touches my heart so deeply to get to bring these incredibly simple and yet profound and not always easy practices that make such a clear and immediate difference in how people are navigating things that feel almost impossible. It's truly a gift. And if I'm not able to speak to my beliefs and to my heart and to what matters to me and to the fact that we are overtly political beings, then I'm limited in how I can talk to people about these things. And so it matters to me that we give ourselves these spaces. And I'm really glad we've gotten to have this conversation here today. And I'm curious if anybody has any closing thoughts as we come to the end of our time.
I was just thinking about what you're saying, and it was very beautiful. If we keep in mind in all our experiences, if we can be fueled by empathy, then we can be better with other people. And by being better with other people, we are a great role model, and we're opening a conversation rather than shutting things down. So really tapping into that love inside of ourselves. It is feeling that love for our world, and knowing that we're all at different points of our experience. It's not for me to judge another person for them and their experience, because it is their experience. So I can just be here and be as tolerant and accepting and open and loving and releasing that empathy into the world. And I think that helps us to have that ultimate reality concept, so that bigger concept of the world that we're in, and not focusing on the things that we don't like about others, but ways of making this a better world. So being active in that, allowing that love and empathy and tolerance out and let it do its work.
That's beautiful. My final closing thought is just a simple word, but a simple phrase, but very true, is hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And I think when we really understand that, there's enough space for compassion and empathy to reach into that part of somebody, or to see and acknowledge that somebody is in pain, and that's potentially why they might be acting out or acting in a way that feels nasty or undesirable for any reason. Um, but it's also really important, I think, to be mindful to protect ourselves. If somebody is not going to be acting in a way that fosters a open, healthy relationship, that we need to be mindful of that too. So there's those two-edged swords. Being compassionate, but compassionate can be that wrathful compassion where
Absolutely.
it requires boundaries. It requires engaging in a healthy way, and with respect and empathy for somebody's suffering and their actions and attitudes, where that comes from.
I love that we brought back in wrathful compassion. I think that is exactly the energy that I feel coursing through me these days. And that we can have compassion. I can recognize the humanity. I can recognize my connection to anybody, and I can say no to harm, and I can choose how I take action and what I think and what I say, and those things can exist in the same space. And so, friends, thank you so much for being in this conversation with us. We would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. We'd love to know what came up for you in this conversation. How do you define political? How do you navigate that inside of your world, whether or not you have a Reiki practice? It's just, how do you, work out, when and how to bring your political identity into other aspects of your life? We'd love to continue that conversation with you down below. If you want to reach out about anything that any of us have said, or the offerings that we mentioned that are coming through our Reiki businesses, please do get in touch. All of that information will be down below in the description. And until next time, we love you so much. Thanks for being with us. Goodbye.